Well, hello again. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Real Parables. We are now in season 2
Hmm.
of Real Parables. We are glad that you could join us on our little adventure through movies and finding those connections, to movies and our Christian faith. Real Parables. We look at these Hollywood movies, oftentimes pretty popular, well-known movies. I mean,
Yeah,
they're the exception. The
yeah.
random ones that nobody's ever seen.
But we have, and we just love them.
Yeah, like Time Bandits was
Time Bandits was one
a
of
great
them.
example of those. But we look at these movies and we are trying to look at them as modern day parables. If I think if Jesus were here today, and if he wanted to be able to relate timeless truths to people, he probably wouldn't talk about sheep and shepherding. He would probably talk about movies and music and television
Yeah,
because it's what people know. It's what we understand. So we're looking at these um, very popular movies, family-friendly movies usually, and trying to find some timeless truths that we can help ourselves and maybe help you understand God in a little bit more in-depth, personal way.
hmm
And today, I think we're looking at our first Marvel movie.
yeah. It's which is funny because we're all pretty diehard Marvel fans.
It's the only movies that I will always go see in the theater first.
Yeah, I think we typically were trying to stay away from Marvel just because it was a big can of worms that we didn't want to open. There's like, oh, we're just gonna do all the Marvel movies.
Well, and there's so much backstory that they
Yeah,
have to
they're so
have.
connected. We thought this one though was pretty good because it takes place during New Year's, being that New Year's is right around the corner. So we chose Iron Man 3, which might not be the first thing you think of when you think of New Year's
No,
movies. There's that movie New Year's Day, which isn't exactly family friendly, so that's why we didn't do that one.
mm,
But this one actually is more of a New Year's movie than I think people really think it is. I think it's kind of like this could be the next debate on if Die Hard was a Christmas movie.
yeah,
Is Iron Man 3 a New Year's movie?
and a Christmas movie because there's
It,
Christmas
it
involved
does
too.
happen during Christmas too.
Yeah, it's kind of in that same realm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but answer is yes.
it
Yes, it
does
is.
fit.
It does
So
fit.
you can now, when it's time to watch your Christmas movies and New Year's movies, you can add in Iron Man 3
Yeah.
uh, to that mix of movies in the rotation. And you can have lots of wonderful debates with friends
Mhm.
and family members on whether it actually is or isn't.
It happens every year.
Yeah,
I think
every year.
most of my family is in a agreement that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
I think most people are coming around.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still the holdouts who are like, no, you can't have a Christmas movie in there because it's not about this, this, or this. Yeah, but it is. It's all about Christmas. So
Well, uh, starting out, if you haven't seen this movie again, spoilers as usual. We're going to be talking about in depth about the entire movie.
but it's fair game. I mean, this movie came
Yeah,
out
it
in
came
what,
out
2013, I think.
something like that. It came out a long time ago.
So it is fair game for talking about
Yes,
without having
I
to be.
was. I think this. I was a senior in high school when this came out, so I think
Yeah.
2013.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fair game, but if you haven't seen it, go see it. Pause this, go watch it. It's a good movie. It's not the
Yeah.
best Marvel movie,
No,
but it's
but it's
good.
Iron Man. It's fun
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah. Compared to all the DC movies, it's still better than all of those.
Yeah,
At least the more modern ones.
yeah,
It's not better than the Dark Knight trilogy.
those are good.
Yeah.
We'll see if the new Batman movie's good.
Yeah.
Well, this movie starts out with ominous Tony saying, "A famous man once said, we create our own demons." And he's like, I don't know who really said that, which is weird because Tony, being a huge technology guy, I think maybe Google.
Yeah.
Who said that? It was Oscar Wilde who said that, actually. The direct quote was, "We are each our own devil, and we make this world our hell." And that's from his play, The Duchess of Padua. I've never heard of that play, but it's a tragedy which seemed pretty dark, so I think that fits the quote. But it's repeated multiple times throughout the film, and it
Mhm.
kind of serves as a reminder as Iron Man's biggest threat is something that he made himself. And it's kind of like, in this literal sense, where Tony created this personified demon by the character Killian, who's this physically disabled guy. He can't walk very well. He's kind of just messed up and uh, is trying to build this think tank to help other people that are disabled and make the
Mhm.
world better. Like
Mhm.
he's asking Tony's help to do a good thing,
Mhm.
and Tony kind of messes with him and lets this dorky guy, or tells this dorky guy he's going to meet him up on the roof in a couple of minutes, and they'll talk things over, and he'll join him.
Happy Gilmore him.
Yeah, he did.
17th, 3 and 7.
Yeah.
19th, 3 and 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Killian shows up. It's New Year's. The fireworks are going off, and Tony's not there. Tony just blew him off, and that is the instant that Tony creates this demon of his, and Killian is just fueled by Tony's rejection and becomes this huge problem 13 years down the road. And but Tony's really his biggest demon proves to be himself, because he is a mess through this entire movie.
Yeah.
He's constantly having anxiety attacks that are like just completely shutting him down. He can't function, and it's just the smallest little thing will trigger him just talking about anything of the Avengers movie that happens right before this film, and he literally is just useless when this happens, and he relies on his Iron Man suits whenever he does have this anxiety attack. He just tries to go back into being Iron Man because that is something that he is comfortable doing. But before we get into more of that, do you think that this quote is true, that we do create our own demons?
I think we do. I think there's a lot of times where, we might not be blatantly even a jerk to somebody. I mean, Tony was clearly awful to Killian.
Yeah.
And later on, he also, another demon that he created in this same night was with the girl that he was with.
Yeah.
Because, the reason why he didn't want to give any time to Killian is because he was with this cute girl who is also a scientist. And, he takes her back up to his room with the idea that he's going to talk to her about, her science and what she's doing with changing plant DNA. And then it ultimately turns, this is back when Tony was a playboy, so it turns into a one-night stand, more than it was anything else. So he creates a demon on top of a demon, because you have Killian who's rejected, and you have this girl who is also rejected. And after this is all done, they end up teaming up. We find this out later on.
Yeah.
So I think we do create a lot of demons in life, and it might not be through intentional stuff like this, but, we say stuff sometimes, especially like this whole cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
There's times where we say stuff, and it might have been something that we said 10 years ago, but because everything's out there always, now somebody is offended by, what we have said. And maybe there's a reason that they're offended by it. Maybe it's taken out of context, but we can pretty easily rile people up and have them become our enemies and really fighting against us.
Yeah, you can be different people too, because at this point, this is 13 years later. Tony's a changed person. He's not a playboy anymore.
No.
He no longer is creating technology as a weapon. He's using it purely just for human accomplishments moving forward, and it kind of shows you that like those past things that you think are nothing really can amount to something, because they just continue to grow and fester.
Yeah, he's grown up. I can't imagine if, people from my life, people who knew me from when I was in high school, I treated people pretty awfully. Like I was that awful kid who would, I wasn't necessarily a bully, like in the traditional sense, but I definitely was a bully to Christians. And if you were a church-going person, I was definitely going to mock you and make fun of you and, think that you're an idiot. Unless you're a hot girl, then I would, pretend to go to church with you. But that was mostly just to see if I can get you to do stuff that I knew that was against what you believed. So if I had contact with those people, all the way back then, I can't imagine how many demons I would have.
Yeah.
How many people would hold my teenage actions against me as a different person. Like if for some reason I moved back to Denver, North Carolina, which is where I went to high school, how differently would people look at me than the people who look at me here?
Yeah.
Would they give me the time of day?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it also, like, thinking about it, like, we're way more critical of ourselves than other people are. Like when I think when we look in the mirror in the morning and we're judging ourselves way harder than anyone else is walking down the street. I think we look at ourselves through this tiny microscope that other people don't, and in that sense, we are being creating that demon of scrutinizing ourselves more than
Yeah,
anyone else or God even is.
yeah. It's the second part of that Oscar Wilde quote that Tony didn't mention.
Yeah.
We're creating our own hells.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. We torture ourselves, and we're so filled with guilt and anxiety about things that really aren't that big of a deal,
No.
but we allow them to build up, and we allow those demons to hold those things against us. And sometimes that the most ferocious demon is the demon that lives inside of us.
Exactly. So yeah, Tony's anxiety gets so bad he can't function. So he decides to distract himself with what he knows, which is tinkering. So he tinkers. He works on his different Iron Man suits and his different inventions, and he just fills up his time making suit after suit. And originally, I think by the second movie, he's on like 5 or 6, maybe
Mhm.
7. At this point in the third movie, he's working on Mark 42.
Mhm.
He's spent so much time into making these suits. So basically, tinkering at this point is just taken over his life. It even gets to the point to where Pepper, his girlfriend, walks downstairs because and sees that he is mimicking, like his suit is just being a surrogate for him going on a date.
Mhm.
Like he thinks, oh, I'll just can continue working down here, and then one of my suits can go off on a date for no, it wasn't Valentine's. It was for it was like just a date night.
Yeah,
Is what it was.
right before Christmas.
Yeah, date night with an Iron Man suit instead of himself, and it's so ridiculous that it is taking over his control this much, and it kind of I don't think like the tinkering is necessarily a bad thing to help him deal with all that anxiety and stress because it's something that he likes doing, but the phrase of too much of a good thing is a
Yeah.
bad thing really just starts to
Yeah.
you start to hear it in
We all need
what
an outlet.
happens. Exactly. But the tinkering just becomes an idol for Tony. It wasn't a idol to begin with. It was a good thing to begin with, but it turned into this because it's what he just relied on and leaned on completely. So in times of stress, have you ever made tinkering an idol, tinkering of anything, or just doing some kind of thing that you like to do?
Yeah, I build stuff. I love going out in my garage and building random stuff. And I can make excuses all day long about, well, it's practical, because Brianna needs planters, or the church needs a background, or the church needs a TV cart, or whatever it happens to be. It's easy to make all these excuses as to why I need to do these as an excuse to distract myself from all the other stuff that I just don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
Especially over the last year, we've been dealing with so much through with the church and people, and to a much lesser degree for me personally. I wasn't COVID wasn't that big of a deal for me, but for
Yeah.
a lot of people it was. I'm sure there was a lot of, I think uh, nurseries and hardware stores had like record sales for their entire business.
Yeah.
Like I have most of the time I go to a smaller hardware store chain called Dixieline. And I go there quite a bit, and I've been going there for a long time, so I know pretty much everybody that was in there. And I was talking to the manager. This is probably over the summer, and asking how things were going. He's like, "This store has just had uh, record sales for all of California." I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." It's like, we actually sold more in this store than all the other stores in San Diego combined. And it's a small, it's nothing like a Home Depot kind of thing. It's very small. He says, we have uh, far exceeded what we ever thought was capable because people just keep coming in. So you have people who are, outside. Brianna has transformed our backyard into, from pretty much concrete and a few plants to a jungle.
Yeah. It is actually a jungle.
And there's lots of people who've done that. It's all trying to be a distraction from COVID, or from, kids, or, just the stresses of having to work from home. So distractions aren't bad. It's like you
Yeah.
said, it's once you allow that tinkering or that hobby to become
Mhm.
all consuming.
Yeah.
Once that becomes your God, the thing that you, or once that thing becomes your addiction, you know, maybe it's not like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol
Yeah.
or, using meth, but if it is, if it's what you rely on to make yourself feel normal, then you have a problem.
Exactly. And I'm always Graham's a great carpenter. I'm always telling him I think he's trying too hard to be like Jesus. Uh, but yeah, it's too much of a good thing is a bad thing. I do it with video games. I love video games and they help relax me, and if I'm feeling stressed or anxious, it really helps me just to get back into a good attitude. But the was like a month or two ago, I was just that was all I was doing with my free time, and then it was just completely taking a hold of me and becoming an idol to me, and I I don't want that at all because that's what it was like when I was in high school, where like I did my homework and then video games. That was about it, and I don't want to be back there. So uh, I have that's something I need to make sure I don't let take control of my life.
Mhm.
So Tony though eventually learns how to do his tinkering in a healthier way, not as a distraction, but something he enjoys doing. He kind of remembers that this is my passion, so I should treat it as a passion, not as an addiction. Uh, but that's something that we've been kind of talking about a lot lately, at least for our like other church videos. Is this in this New Year's spirit, we wanted to go back to some of our passion. That's my New Year's resolution this year. Is I don't want to keep not doing those things because after COVID, I feel like I've been complaining for a long time about things we weren't able to do because everything was closed down,
Mhm.
and so it was easy to make excuses. And uh, I like to talk about the things that I can't do now, or the things that aren't open, uh, or the things that you need like vaccination cards or X, Y, and Z to do anything. But in reality, there's not much that you can't do now at this point.
Yeah.
Everything's mostly open. Uh, I'm just so comfortable with making excuses that I'm not doing the things I enjoy most, which is frustrating. So yeah, personally, my resolution for New Year's is to go do the hobbies I enjoy, which includes rock climbing, fishing, and winemaking. Like those three things I love doing, and I did almost no, actually I don't think I did any of them last year.
Mm.
I think I went rock climbing once, and everything else I just did not do all of last year, which sucks because those are like my three favorite things to do,
Mhm.
and I just didn't do them.
Yeah, I'm in the same place that I have to give myself permission to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, I I do have a workaholic gene in me where I think that if I'm not working, I'm being lazy. So
Yeah.
even on my days, my technical days off, I still find myself doing work related stuff. I mean, it might be fun work related stuff, out in the garage building something, but it's always, work related, or 99% of the time it's work related. Um, but I've had to come to the point where it's okay for me to have fun.
Yeah.
It's okay for me if I like doing something to take time to go do that thing. So my biggest excuse is, um, well, there's just not time for it. Like I like to go shooting,
Hmm.
but to go shooting, it's a 4 hour process. Because you have to get all your stuff together. I have a lot of guns. I'm not going to tell you what they are or where they are, but I have a lot of guns. Um, and I like to shoot them all. I don't want to just shoot one. So I have to get all those together, drive at least 30 minutes, to probably the nearest gun range or shooting areas. If I want to really spend a good amount of time without having to worry about money, then I have to drive about an hour out to the desert. And then, however long I'm going to be out there, and then drive back, and then I have to clean all the guns, because I don't put my guns away dirty.
Yeah.
So it's at least 4 hours, and I keep saying, well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. But I have 4 hours to do a lot of other stuff that isn't something I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I have to just stop making the excuse that there's just not time. I think that's my biggest weakness is there's just not enough time to get this done and this done. Even when it comes to other smaller projects. Well, I can't start that today because it's going to be dark in an hour. It's like,
Hmm.
well, I could start it. I don't even
Yeah.
have to finish it today.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's an excuse, and I want to do my best to get rid of this year. Is saying there's not enough time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have the time to do that before this other thing,
Yeah,
but I have enough time to binge a TV show or
yeah,
watch a movie or fit a couple games in.
hmm
It, yeah, I just make excuses
yeah,
because when I don't need to because I have time.
yeah.
There's just this illusion that I don't have time, but you do have time.
Well, and COVID really has made me kind of, I'm naturally a more introverted person,
Hmm.
and COVID has definitely not helped that.
Yeah, it kind of reinforces that like stay home. It's good.
Yeah,
It's good to stay home.
yeah. So I think I need to lean more heavily into Brianna's mentality of, I can't stay home. This is going to drive me crazy,
Hmm.
and just get out of that comfort zone a little bit.
Hmm. You had a point that you mentioned about the terrorist of the movie.
Oh
How,
yeah, yeah. So throughout the whole movie, the bad guy, well, not the whole thing, about 3/4 of the
yeah,
movie,
the Mandarin.
the bad guy that we're told about is the Mandarin. He comes suddenly on the news, you know, uh, in a very cryptic, you know, terroristy kind of way, with these flashes of public outcry and riots, and then he has this cryptic message about him doing some terrorist bombing somewhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Very Riddler.
yeah, very very scary, very um, uh, built to that you have no control. This is going to happen whether you like it or not. There's nothing you can do about
Yeah.
it. I'm teaching you a lesson. He's talking to both primarily the United States president. That your lesson isn't complete yet, but will be by Christmas. So there's all this tension and fear that's being built up that this Mandarin character is the bad guy. But at somewhere in that 3/4, Tony's gone through all this stuff, and he's starting to realize that there's more to this story than what's really going on, and he finds a way to track down this Mandarin guy,
Hmm.
and he's goes in with his little Home Depot kit of because he doesn't his suit's broken, so
Yeah.
it just has to be Tony with his Home Depot assault kit.
Yeah.
It's
pretty awesome.
it's pretty cool. He does a good job. Made up some homemade tasers and
Some
some
ornament grenades.
yeah. So he's doing all this stuff, and he raids the compound, and you get in there, and he finds the Mandarin, and he finds out that the Mandarin isn't really the Mandarin. It's just an actor,
Hmm.
and he's kind of a weirdo, and he's just a puppet, right? The real bad guy is Killian, and Killian has been manipulating the situation. Killian through his little think tank, has created these explosions because it's a failed experiment, and he's using the Mandarin to cover up that failed experiment while he's building his secret army. So, uh, this whole time we're told this one thing, but it's a misdirect.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time in our world. We are convinced all the time that this thing over here, this is the real enemy, or this person over here, they're your real enemy, or this belief system, this is the real enemy. But ultimately, those things are just misdirects. Ultimately, the real enemy is the evil one. It's Satan. It's the devil. Whatever you want to call him. He's the one that's behind the scenes manipulating us, manipulating society, and convincing us that all those things. This is what you need to worry about. Don't worry about me. I'm not real. I don't exist. I'm in the background. And that's Killian even says that. He realized how much power he could have just manipulating from the background, that he didn't need to be out front doing things. He could just maneuver stuff and misdirect.
Yeah, he says once you give face and evil, people just all they focus on is that target.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
you can hear about something evil happening, but once there's a face to that,
Yeah.
then people just sink their teeth into
Yeah.
that. That's all they care about.
And it's true. It's
Yeah.
totally true. And Satan uses that tactic on us all the time.
Mhm.
Think about all the times you are convinced that something is evil. Well, chances are the thing that you're convinced is evil, there might be some evil components to it, but really there's an evil being that is behind that, pushing that. There's no doubt that racism is evil.
Mhm.
There's no doubt. But where do you think racism comes from? That is our enemy lying and deceiving us, trying to convince us that we can't be trusted, that we have to think lesser of this group out there. That's not a natural human thing, right? If you have a child, and that child is raised in a home where those kind of thoughts aren't there, they don't just magically develop those ideas.
Yeah.
Racism is not a natural human emotion. It is something that is taught by an evil one that is manipulating society. And that can be said about everything, that we're manipulated constantly by our enemy. And our enemy is a spiritual being, Satan.
Yeah.
Devin's not my enemy. Lauren's not my enemy. Brianna, Matt, all these people that are in my lives, they're not my enemies. It's Satan that's going to mess with my mind. So I just thought that was a very important picture that we see,
Yeah.
In this idea of parables. It's a great parable
Mhm.
that we can pull from this movie.
Yeah. He doesn't have to be the face of it. You can let someone else be the face of it and take the heat while he just keeps doing mischievous things.
Yeah.
An honorable mention I kind of wanted to throw in here was near the end of the movie, and all these suits are starting to fight. All I forget what the name of all the different people were called. What were they called?
Extremists.
Extremists.
Yeah.
They were all the suits are fighting these extremists, and Tony's Mark 42 suit, which at this point has been pretty beaten up and is just kind of in shambles.
Yeah.
Comes flying in. He's like, "Oh, the prodigal son returns."
Yeah.
This guy, this suit that has failed me so many times, is coming back, and I can finally fight
Yeah.
Killian and defeat him. And the suit just hits a wall and just falls into pieces. it's just great comedic timing. I just
Yeah.
want to throw that in because he actually mentions a parable
Yeah.
in the the most famous parable
Yeah.
in the movie. Thought it was funny.
Yeah.
But in true New Year's fashion, the movie ends in fireworks. Tony shows that he's done making an idol of his work and his tinkering and his suits. So he blows them up in a fantastic and awesome firework display, kind of as a Christmas gift to his girlfriend Pepper. And Tony, to start this, Tony tells his assistant Jarvis to start the clean slate protocol, which is a very fitting name because the whole idea of clean slate comes from John Locke's philosophy, tabula rasa, which I think is Latin, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Latin for a scraped tablet, or in other words, clean slate. And Tony's just completely getting rid of these suits, and it's kind of starting his life with a blank slate. He's not these things that were an idol over his life are now gone. They're completely out of his life because they had a hold on him, but doing this is kind of like a declaration of this no longer has a hold on my life. And this philosophy is basically what Jesus gives us every day in the form of grace. Every time we mess up and every time we sin, we're given a clean slate with no record of any of the wrongdoings that we did. And that philosophy is what the world practices every year on January 1st. The whole world, whether you're a Christian or not, kind of has this idea of this new year. This is going to be a new me. And I think it's interesting how the entire world kind of has that practice of New Year, New Me, and it's what Jesus does to us with His grace. What kind of feelings do you usually feel towards the beginning of the new year?
Well, I think towards the beginning of the new year, like most people, I get this feeling that it's time for a change. That usually having to do with health. As I know that I need to lose some weight. I know that I need to get more exercise. So I have this general idea of, okay, I got to do this, this, and this, and this. So it kind of, and I like having a benchmark. That um, on this day I'm going to start, and it's going to be different this year. And I think that's important in my mindset whenever I'm starting something new, but especially in New Year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel towards the end of the year almost like guilty. Like the things I wanted to do this year weren't what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it happens every year. I'm like, I just didn't accomplish what I wanted to. And I feel bad for myself when I shouldn't, because at least at the beginning I'm hopeful. I have
Mm-hmm.
hope for the next year, and I don't want that to stop. I want it every year. I want to have that hope of this year I can be better. And even if I fail and mess up, I still want to keep that mindset of I can still be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as believers in Jesus, New Year's Day is every day. We're constantly every morning being made new and being made whole because of the grace that Jesus gave us. And I don't want to lose that. I just want to always remember that this is a new day, new me, every day, not just New Year's, because once a year is not good enough. Where Jesus is just constantly making us clean, because we believe in Him and that grace that He gave us. But we want to thank you for listening to this podcast. As always, we love watching movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we make this podcast as an excuse to watch movies and talk about Jesus. It's the two things that we really like doing, and we're throwing them in in a pot together. But yeah, let us know if you have any movie suggestions or any movie ideas, maybe even TV shows we've been talking about. Maybe we'll try doing a TV show here or there.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to do like a one episode of
Yeah.
the Karate Kid Netflix show that
Yeah.
came out.
Very, very good show.
A lot of good stuff in there. It'd be really hard to fit all into one episode.
It would be difficult, but maybe we do a series out of it. But we really appreciate you guys listening to us, and we hope that you listen to more of our episodes because they're really good, or at least we think they are.
We think they are. And if you don't want to listen, if you want to see us, you can also find us on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
These videos will be on there on our various pages. So please spend some time flipping around in there. We do a lot of videos on Facebook that are shorter than this, but are equally the amount of fun.
Thank you for watching, and we are listening, and we hope to see you again. Bye.